Thank you, Peter. Next, we will have Keith Hazelton, who is from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the United States. Keith is the senior IT architect, also is very much involved in the Internet 2 middleware efforts, chairs the MACE Directory Working Group, and there are probably those who say that I try to cut off the legs to his chair every now and again. Keith and I have also had the pleasure of working together on the development of the EduPerson object class. And Keith will be presenting today on civilizing EduPerson, not just another arrogant, unilateral USA initiative. Keith.
Thank you. A little higher. Okay. Trying to get it a little higher, but also so it doesn't rub on the shirt. Is that better? Acceptable? Okay. All right, we'll try this. Okay.
It's a hardware problem.
Yeah. All right. I've got just 3 topics here. I understand that I am the last speaker on a beautiful day, first day of a conference with a reception coming up, so I will certainly not take us over. But I first wanted to talk about collaboration as a topic that I really hope we'll spend much time at this conference. Those of us that are interested, getting together in the hallway during the breaks, maybe if there's an impromptu BOF session, getting together to talk about this, the possibilities for it, and details about how we might do it. So I do want to spend a little time explaining why I think and how I think this might be done. I'd start that by just pointing to the flourishing of activities in the space of developing and extending person schema registries. We have from the Norwegians, we have the NorEduPerson, we have from Finland, the FUNET EduPerson, we have from Switzerland, the Swiss EduPerson, and of course the old-fashioned EduPerson unprefixed. And we're also taking note of early stage work at the Western Australian Library Authentication Project, WALLOP. And then last fall I went to Hokkaido to the Japan Gigabit Network Conference and stirred up some interest, found some interest there already in schema issues. And so if the time is not ripe, I'm not sure when it will be, because there's substantial effort and results behind each of those things. So given that, what would it be good to try to achieve? And this is a very tricky question. I think the answer to this question will determine whether there is success or failure. I'm going to talk about these things in the order of increasing difficulty and going along with that. As the difficulty increases, the probability of success goes down. So there's an implicit argument here on my part that let's start with the things at the top of this list, and time permitting, energy permitting, willpower permitting, move down. The notion that we could agree on interesting attributes, that an attribute to carry something like a date of birth would be of value to a bunch of us. You're willing to commit to that statement generally, then we've already done some work if we develop and maintain and remember a list like that. The next step up from saying, yeah, we all find that an interesting object about which to represent things in an LDAP directory by way of an attribute and value pairs. Then, and this gets harder, can we agree on a common syntax for that and a common semantics? Even if you get a common syntax, EduPerson affiliation, for example, has the value of student for EduPerson affiliation. A controlled list of values that are allowed student is one. The common semantics, is there enough of a core of what we mean by student that this is actually going to be useful for any real-world purpose? And naysayers to the contrary, we've found that student, if you allow each institution to define their own sense of what they mean by a student and put them only under the constraint that their way of defining it has to be explainable to a person from outside the institution and at least make some kind of sense to them when they do, that's been enough for licensed resource providers to say, you know what, it's too hard to do anything else. If you assert student through an object class of EduPerson affiliation, we're going to accept that and say that, yeah, this is licensed for students and that's good enough. That's the thing that will help you win on the semantics, whereas if you tried to get a committee to define Platonic ideal sense of student, not my choice of lifetime careers, but it may be somebody's. I think of this kind of work to come up with and agree on common syntax and semantics as a kind of inter-federation diplomatic activity. That is, it's typically federations that are coming up with these person schemas. All of the Norwegian higher ed institutions, Internet 2 for that branch of the research universities in higher ed. And so you can see what kinds of skills, some of which are not in great supply on my side of the pond for diplomatic activity, but that's the only way it would succeed. Okay, let's say we could get that far. Then what you might try to do next is say, well, fine, we have these attributes about date of birth or gender or email addresses for organizations. Let's actually put those into a common object class that we will all use, probably auxiliary object class, since that makes it easy to bring things in. Then you run into a new set of questions, given that you want to get there, and that is, so what? Do we put it in EduPerson? Do we try to campaign for some of those attributes to be included in the next edition of X520 as a new attribute there? What are the other possibilities for coming up with European EduPerson, or what level do we want to try to do this? And in the end, you have to pick one if you're going to take that step. So you can see why that one's getting harder, and the probability of success is dropping rapidly. I put this at the bottom. I'm not so sure as I look at it that processes for ongoing schema coordination is the hardest thing on the list, but it's probably the last thing we'll get to. Although I was encouraged by Peter's talk about the schema registry and his belief that this is not going to be so complex as to be undoable, that in fact it looks complex when you write it all down because there's a lot of details, but that you could actually design a system to actually do this. So I'm encouraged that schema coordination, in fact, maybe Peter's schema registry could take on some of these kinds of functions. That's just a brainstorm kind of thought that I, again, hope we'll have time to explore further in the course of the conference here. So how would we go about this if we decide it's a good thing and we say we'll start with just talking about, gee, we find this attribute interesting, and work on from there. And again, I don't have an answer here, but I do have kind of an offer, a proposal that when the time is right, I think it's probably pretty soon, Internet 2 could organize and sponsor and help bring about a kind of virtual meeting space for a concentrated period of time to delve into this proposal that, and a lot of that would be, I would say, on that first bulleted list. That is, so what do we find interesting? Maybe getting into the issues of common syntax and semantics. Throwing around some ideas about common object class, but I don't think we would try reasonably to get further than that. It could be to conference calls delve into this with phones or SIT-based things, if that becomes possible in some subset. I've talked to Ken Klingenstein,
Students are in the same.
He's in Internet 2, and he's thought that the resources on the Internet 2 side certainly would be there to support something like 6 weeks,
most recently used
set of calls. Probably on this kind of thing, it's better to be intensive and go from us, this side of the Pacific, from your point of view, that we probably should need a set of two sort of parallel tracks of calls. That is, one set of calls would be between the U.S. and Europe, another set of calls between U.S. and Australia/Japan, China. Now, I can imagine you folks might come up with a third, which would be Europe and East Asia, and maybe the schedules permit there, but it's hard to find a time when people have already gotten up in one place and haven't yet gone to bed in the other, but we can do this, I think. The charter would be to go back to that previous slide, start working down the list, right? Given that we hack on that list somewhat and figure out that that's really what we want to do. And if we, really are burning up the track and making lots of progress, then we could move on to the EDU organizational object space. There's lots of interest I've seen from the DEEP survey and so forth that we'll talk about in a minute on working more in that space. That's just beginning. It's not as far along as the person objects, but hey, let's go there because we certainly need to. And if we're wildly successful and/or we just really like these international phone calls, we could think about what I think is the next big looming topic, which is closer coordination between the directory folks among us and those of us working in authentication, authorization, information spaces. Sometimes it's the same
system.
person, right? But at any rate, thinking more explicitly about
because
that,
they were
there's
curious
areas for
and they were eager
agreement
to
and
test the
standardization there
system.
that
Some other
rich beyond imagination. So anyway, let's please find ways to talk about this at all these possibilities on work.
Mainly for multi-homing PC and resiliency.
So that's topic one of the three. This next one is the one that I have the most slides number, and we are about halfway through my time, so I think we'll do ways to talk about this at all these possibilities on work.
Mainly for multi-homing PC and resiliency.
So that's topic one of the three. This next one is the one that I have the most slides number of responses, and we are about halfway through my time. Some good news for I think we'll do ways to talk about this at all these possibilities on work.
Mainly for multi-homing PC and resiliency.
So that's topic one of the three. This next one is the one that I have the most slides number of responses, and we are about halfway through my time. Some good news for I think we'll do ways to talk about this at all these possibilities on work.
Mainly for multi-homing PC and resiliency.
So that's topic one of the three. This next one is the one that I have the most slides number of responses, and we are about halfway through my time. So I think we'll do ways to definition work was that we really picked things projects where we imagine. So I feel somewhat confirmed that so that's topic one of the organizational place attributes. That is, what organizational unit or organization are you in? Because we're not of a flat space for people, OU equals people for organizational unit people. And then you tell me, for this person entry, which is one of 40,000 at the University of Wisconsin, the organizations and departments, organizational unit or organization are you in? Because we're not a flat space for people, OU equals people for organizational unit people. And then you object. Tell me, for this person entry, which is one of 40,000 at the University of Wisconsin, the organizations and departments, organizational unit or organization are you in? Because we're not a flat space for people, OU equals people for organizational unit people. And then you object. Tell me, for this person entry, which is one of 40,000 at the University of Wisconsin, the organizations and departments, organizations and organization are you in? Because we're not flat space for people who use people things that should not be project. This peace entry, which is one of 30,000 at the University of Wisconsin, the organizations and departments, organizations within the organization are really keen because they're not that word and its derivation and project that's actually up and running now is as long as the resource provider is a member of the Federation of Shibboleth-using folks.
Conclusions,
by only relying on the local.
we expected delay to be a primary problem, but
that project and
was
actual
not
pilots
because
and
most
at this stage,
conductors
production very
overcome
soon
it.
is what drove.
We are
us
working
to make
with low speeds. 2 megabit per second are not that much on the backbone,
folks on the
although
Shibboleth
it's
project that
reserved
believe over time
for
the affiliation
our
values
service.
will dwindle
So we are
away, wither
thinking
away,
about,
and that
besides
education
being 2 megabits
values
is
inside
a
there will
peak
become the way
velocity,
that
so
people
the bit
actually agree between
rate
each other
guarantee is
that, yes,
1
this person
megabit
is
per
authorized
second.
for that
We
resource.
have an ATM
And,
variable bit
let me
rate
explain
service,
how this can possibly
NRT,
work.
non-real
The
time.
values are
so
specified to be
probably
URIs,
with a real-time service
identifiers,
or a CDR,
URLs typically, or as we're
maybe 2
advocating
megabit, we could
increasingly
do
the use of
better.
URNs,
Right
Uniform
now, we
Resource
are
Names.
maintaining this infrastructure
MACE,
on
which is the Middleware Architecture Committee for
a
Education,
separate budget and
organizing
continuing our experiments, and hopefully we will be able
gone
to
to the
have
trouble
a second edition of
drafting
the project, including other regions besides just Emilia-Romagna. We have the tradition of Giuseppe Verdi and Arturo Toscanini. So the network is capable of doing that and already because it is a multicast network. What I think is really important, we have to spend more time to educate orchestra conductors to the use of live video conference. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Questions?
Basic notion is simple thing we have is you are employing this
You mentioned the problem of jitter.
Yes.
Have you performed a jitter analysis of your network and also on the scaling of the network? First question. Second question, what is bearable? What size of jitter is bearable to a conductor?
What size of the jitter is?
Yeah, what number?
Actually, we haven't done a exact quantitative evaluation of the jitter. The feeling from the conductor is just an impression, and even if I show figure to him, says he wouldn't really feel relieved from my numbers. So this is my experience. So as an engineer, we didn't do that, but we are working on that. But I expect that the real feeling of the conductor is on the field more than on the numbers. So the jitter, if you mean figures in terms of time or I don't know, of course you perceive it as a sudden acceleration or deceleration, but we didn't do any quantitative evaluation of that. And I didn't inquire with the conductors building a subject or a personal evaluation of the jitter compared to the figures that we could have. So.
Did you mention Did you mention doing echo cancellation?
The echo cancellation.
Echo cancellation.
Oh, actually, we have relied on the M-Bone Tools facility on that. So there is just a button for echo cancellation on the M-Bone Tools. However, we have the problem of if we keep both the sides with the listen and the talk on, if this is your question, we had this problem and we had to face this problem of the return of the sound. So we tried to keep microphones. Of course, this was not done with a webcam and €2 microphone. It was done with professional cameras and professional microphones. So the microphones were very directional in order to avoid return of the feedback of the remote audience within the microphone, to avoid loop, keeping listen and talk at the same time on.
And did the participants think the music sound was too flat, given the congestion of the sampling?
Of course they did. There was the very early experiments we did, especially the conductors, they didn't feel what they call is a flat sound, without, like an equalizer, with all the bars at the same level. So this is a limitation of the RAT tool, because it's not designed to support such kind of application. What we did is we put in between the microphone and the pin, the plug of the computer, an audio equalizer and an audio mixer, in order to adjust the equalization of the sound to compensate for the flatness of the RAT tool. RAT tool was designed to operate with a codec 16 kilobit, which is double the standard PCM coding, which was not excellent for the director, but decent for the purpose.
Okay. I'm giving a talk tomorrow on while somebody else applies from the audience, I'm very curious to know, besides performing experiments within the project, did any of the artists participating in the project use the system to do their daily job or do some project of their own?
Right now, the system is still working and it is used, as far as I know, there is only 2 directors that they are still using the system right now. This is a link to the next edition of the project. Since vocational training courses are standardized on some hours of training done with this system and some hours they do not go on a volunteer base to use the system. So
Thank you. Any further questions to any of our 3 speakers? I would certainly encourage you not to let them leave the room until they answer all your questions in privacy. I would like to encourage you to wake up in the morning early and join to our plenary sessions, because tomorrow we have really 2 outstanding speakers, Jan Foster, basically the guru of Open Grid services, and Ken Klingenstein, who probably doesn't need too much of introduction. In the meantime, I also want to invite you this evening at 7 o'clock in the Croatian National Theatre for the opening ceremony. There will be some artistic program and very short speeches. It's only 10 minutes stroll from here, northeast bound, yellow nice 19th century building. You will certainly find it. I wish to thank you for being here this afternoon. Hope you like the whole conference and Zagreb especially. And see you this evening. Thank you. Interesting. Yeah. I can imagine. What did you do? How do you think I can do my job? More sound is
Noću svakako, da ne moram sutra jutro 5 minuta prije da bi bio daj. Ovo ajmo maknuti, maknut ćemo ove sve koje nam više ne treba, znači ovo. Znači sve probu stavi, prvo mora ono vidjeti što ona zapravo čuo mobitel. Da. Is this your mobile? Okay. Welcome. Dobro, probu ćemo staviti otvoreno, nek bude dole. Okay. Hoćemo ga spustiti u stand-by, u Hibernate ili? No, možda bi mogu fakat. Da si sve otvorimo i hiberniramo. Samo moramo po ovoj menadžeru. To nisu Windows 2000, to su Windows 2000. Da, onda vidimo što je. Nemaš hibernirano. Jebeno. A to bude neki aspekt. Ok. Moramo si, znači, skopirati, da spustimo ovu jebenu probu, jer uvijek me to ovo, tak volim, poludim kad to moram svaki use like current for yes. Sad. Meni ovo smeta iskreno. To isto, a? Dobro. Dobro, to je još podnošljivo. Dobro, je. Ajmo, uzet ćemo si kaj session.
Ajde, da nešto. Šta ćeš napraviti? Znači vi to znate.
Za sutra si spremamo sad.
Dobro, odavdje si skopirate tam i to je to.
Da, 2A, jel da?
Znači vi se znate ovdje,
da.
Ok,
stvarno. Ok. Dobro. Joj, lepi. Imaš onu knjižicu? Onu, znaš ono sa rasporedom da vidimo kaj je... Da ne idemo, evo moj mikrofon. Ok, tamo zapne, možeš. A onaj bežić, onaj buba? Gdje je buba? Dobro, nek bude. Ok. Je, ugašenje. Krešo, plava knjiga ona.
Yeah, there's always going to be a need for that. Every person is never going to cater to all those things. But the whole point of sorting this out, that's where we earn our meager money, I think, is in giving sound, wise advice on how that's done. Which brings us full circle back to, please, let's take advantage of being physically in the same space over the next several days to discuss these things further, especially the possibilities for collaborative work. Thank you very much. And questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Keith? Of course, Ingrid does.
Being the culprit behind the No Radio person and the No Radio org, You mentioned that people want to add what you perceive as sensitive attributes, like gender, birth date, national identity. I think there are actually two different classes, and you touched on one of them, which is the need. Is there a need to carry unique identifiers? Because if you look at the proposed schemas, you will find that most of the proposed extensions to EduPerson and EduOrg are actually unique identifiers, either numbers or names, that either replaces a DN of some kind, or they act as a container you can use in external applications. Also, some of them are used for building federation. If I remember correctly, the Swiss EduPerson has a realm attribute that actually is used for just for storing the realms of all the participating federation, all the organizations participating in the federation. So could you comment a bit?
Grab your coat and let's start walking. Come on, come on.